Welcome to Weld.com, another MIG Monday series. I'm going to help somebody out here that's been contacting me and kind of some entry-level things, but it translates to some of the advanced material, and we'll tell you why here in just a second. But we're running beads. This particular person, Instagram ctucker7, I'm going to call him out and I'm going to help him out here because he sent me some pictures of some stuff he was doing. I'm going to get close to what he was doing. I'm running off of a ESAB 215. I'm going to run 18 volts, about 230 on wire speed, and I'll check that here off camera before we get going. But he's running beads on 1/4-inch plate and sent me some pictures, and I see just some quick things that we could do better that translate into other work, like we're going to go on and do production work. And these beads, to me, need to be blended together in a straight line. I know that we've done some videos where we're running multiple stick beads. I believe one night we had fun and we ran a real long video, like 30-something minutes, and we were running everything in the house here with the 60-10, 60-13, 70-14, different polarities. We were just running stuff. But every bead we ran on the plate was in a straight line and blended together. There's a reason for that. So I've got samples of fillet welds, both with stick, 60-13, looks like some spray that we did on a video. And then here is a stick weld that we did 60-10 horizontal root groove, procedure type weld, and we finished it out with 70-18. We've left every pass in here so you can kind of see, but you know, no undercut, beads are blended together, and we've got a profile so that if we went and x-rayed this, or if we did a bend test, then it should pass. The problem with running on MIG and short arc is, you know, we need to clean in between passes. We need to blend these beads together. Short circuiting MIG, we can do flat horizontal, uphill, downhill, overhead. It doesn't matter, you know, when we're running a good bead profile and everything, we should be able to run in any position, and that's what I want to help out on. Also, I've cleaned some material down to pure white metal, and then I've left some dirty. And I'm going to answer another viewer's question in this same video. You know, do you clean your material with MIG? And the answer is, yeah, I really like to clean my material with short-circuiting MIG. Hopefully this will come out pretty nice too. MIG and TIG we like to clean. Stick welding, we can get through some of this mill scale. Flux core, same thing, but your weld goes faster, it wets into the parent metal better if the mill scale is off of there. So, and it doesn't take long to clean. We could do a whole video on how to clean and prep material, which I think we should do sometime soon. Anyway, let me get my sleeves on, double check my machine, and we'll get going. Be right back. I'm gonna run my first bead on the edge of the plate out here. I'm close to what this gentleman asked or told me he was using. He just said 18 volts, well, he said $1.80 on the wire feed speed, C25 gas, 25 cubic feet per hour. He didn't say what wire size. I'm using 030 wire on the little guy machine here today, 18 volts, and I've got mine at about 235 on my wire feed speed. So again, I just want to run this bead across here. Now, by judging from his photo that he sent, the beads were way too big to begin with, and so we're stacking way too much material up, too big. I'm going to run this bead, it's probably going to be about 1/4 inch wide, and that's all. All right, I ran out here on the edge as best I can see. I'm looking over the top of it. Pretty clean bead. Sure, it's going to rope up a little bit because I don't have any place for the metal to go per se. And when I start running these beads and blending them together, then they'll lay down fairly well. What I should do, and this isn't too bad, but I do have small spots of deposit here that I'm pecking off. I don't know if you can catch that. So I'm also using a very slight stitch or rocking motion. That's just me. I have a really hard time personally just pulling the trigger and trying to go, real smooth. I never learned to weld that way. I've always done a gentle rocking motion, and it's worked well for me. Now, some of you call it a whip and do some great big exaggerated thing. Man, you need to get away from that. That's not cool. So let's run another bead and blend them together, and we'll talk more about the whole purpose of this. Okay, I've ran a series of beads here. For the most part, they're blended together. This last one has more deposits on the toe, which now I'm interested in going and cleaning it off. So I want to do a wire wheel on the edge of the toe of this weld here, in here where it's blended to the parent metal. There's several things here. Travel speed is my width and my height. If I raced forward, my bead would be real narrow and peaked. If I slowed down a lot, the bead would be built up. It's like I'm shooting wire on top of the weld bead, and we're just kind of we're not carrying the pull per se. And I believe that's what this gentleman was doing. So, from here, let me go clean this, and then we're going to run other beads in other positions. Okay, I'm going to run a couple of horizontals here, kind of finagle this around to get two camera angles. I'm in a little bit of an uncomfortable place. I ran two just for a test so we could get the camera angle in here. But again, this bead profile is slightly different just by position, but it should blend together. So let's see if we can put a couple more in here. Folks, I had a hard time seeing that one. I had a hard time following the toe of the weld by where I'm sitting. And that brings up a key point. You really need to keep your lenses clean so you can see some critical edges and stuff. This will get way easier when I change positions, for me anyway. Again, we're trying to work with camera angles here, so keep your lenses clean. You got to be able to see this. You want to be able to see the edges of your weld and the height of your weld all the time. I'm not running in a groove, so therefore I'm just, we're just hitting the toe of the weld, the small focal point. So again, horizontal runs the same. I haven't changed the settings. Now I want to do some downhill and some uphill. So let's change the cameras and we'll be right back. Okay, I have now turned this a couple of degrees off of vertical. It's plenty vertical for this position to get the effect of it. Now here's something. I cleaned this off. I've cooled it off, I cleaned it off, I buffed the glass on the toe of the weld. And are you zoomed in on this? Take a soapstone. If you're having a hard time seeing, which I am, take a soapstone and just lightly drag down through at the toe of the weld. It'll stand out. Here in a minute I'm going to use a scribe, and when we do uphill, I'll show you what that looks like on clean steel. So we're ready to run more beads. Again, have not changed any settings at all on this machine for all these different positions. I'm looking up underneath the wire to see this white line at the toe of the weld. C. Tucker, you told me in your message that you were weaving. We'll get to that here in a minute. A minute ago I said I was doing a little stitch motion, barely forward and back. That's how I move. Now I'm barely moving side to side. I don't want to go up and down on this particular weld. I want to run another one here. I'm not blending these where they're super pretty yet. I have a hard time doing this particular plate since I've been in the groove weld. I guess I got spoiled by seeing groove welds. Time to quench stuff off. Be right back. I've marked a couple of lines on here. What I want to do now, I've marked a series of lines 1/4 of an inch apart. I'm going to get back away from this bead and I want to do a slight weave. This person said they were practicing a weave technique. Now going downhill with short arc, weaving is okay in certain situations. In some fillet welds, a slight weave is okay. My whole deal with it is don't carry too much metal. Short-circuiting MIG is inherent for lack of fusion into the parent metal. That's why cleaning the metal is important. So what I'm trying to do now is stay between the lines and create a pocket or a void in between the toes of these welds because we're going to go uphill. Now I mark these in with soapstone, but what I really want to do is grab the old handy scribe over here and scribe them in a little deeper. I may scribe them in deep and scratch on them pretty good, and then soapstone over the top of that. We'll see what happens when we get done here. All right, we've got some scratch marks in there we should be able to follow pretty good. So by staying in between the two lines, the profile of this bead is about the same as the one that I did in flat and horizontal, height-wise. Width-wise, I stayed between there and I feel better about that. It looks pretty straight. Okay, my whole deal is, I've got my wire pointed up about 5 degrees and I'm staying on the leading edge. I've seen a lot of people weld downhill, even uphill. I've seen them and it's like their wire is always on top of the weld pool instead of in the leading edge of the weld pool. It's like we want to carry that metal. So I want to do another one of these, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to create a space. Maybe I created too big a one here. We're going to go uphill and do the same thing. We're going to slightly weave. So let me do another one and then we'll experiment here. Go uphill. I think I made these too far apart. My bad, because I really didn't want to weave that much material. So I'd probably, if I keep doing this, I'd skinny this up a little bit. Let me go quench this off and buff it. I'll be right back. Okay, I went and buffed this off, cleaned it off, cleaned the toe of the weld. These beads are nice and straight, but I can openly admit, I think this is just a little bit too wide. I'd do this again, experiment. I'd probably reduce this by 1/8 of an inch. These are probably, between the toe of the welds, the absolute toe is probably 3/8, and that's a little wide. Again, we want a little bit of a weave going uphill. This whole deal is being straight and same height. So it's all about staying in the pool and the travel speed being consistent. I'm over here to the side a little bit. I'm gonna be kind of like this. There's a lot going on here. I mentioned something about being able to see clearly. There's being comfortable, there's propping. Yeah, I'm sitting down so that we can get this stuff going. I realize when we're working in the shops and out in the field, we're not always in comfortable positions. Trust me, I've been there, I paid my dues, I know all about it. So we try to get comfortable around here. Again, we're learning how. You know, you practice till you get good, and then you start practicing. You practice till you can't get it wrong. That's what it's all about, really. So trying to build confidence, trying to teach here. Little big, little too wide. Like I said a minute ago, that was probably a little too wide. I did want some place for the metal to go. Now, since we've done that, we can buff that off. I'll just run one up by the toe of the weld without weaving hardly anything. And I fully expect the bead to be a lot rounder, ropey looking. So let's try that and see what happens. Again, this is all practice on running straight lines and blending beads together for the most part. So let's try this and see what happens. I'm gonna run one more right there. Okay, we've run a series of beads here. 18 volts, 235 on the wire feed speed, 030, 75% argon, 25% CO2, about 25 cubic feet per hour. A decent setting. a good condition, I would say, arc condition and bead profile. And we could do a lot of stuff with this in fabricating, up to 3/16 quarter, if we're running multiple beads, 5/16 material. So we ran flat, we turned this horizontal, we ran some beads, we ran some downhill. I ran downhill away from these other beads to create a pocket. We weaved one in uphill, and then I ran two just kind of like stringer beads with very little motion, and you can see that they're up quite a bit, and that's just the nature of how that bead was going to lay in there. Good exercise, sure. Blend them together, you know, in straight lines, regardless of what position you're in. You see that I got a little squirrely over here on the horizontal. Anyway, good exercise, and I encourage the young man that has written me, and you know, you can do this, just practice. I think you're carrying too much metal, and tone it down a little bit, speed up your travel speed. So we did all this on clean metal. I want to kind of go over here and just quickly run some stuff on this mill scale looking stuff that wasn't clean, and you know, I'm going to see it underneath the hood. I hope you see it. To me, it should rope up and be tall. It's not going to blend into the parent metal. So first thing we'll start out with is the flat position, and we'll just run some more beads quickly. We'll mock up a couple more and just see what happens. I ran some beads here. The first one, I really noticed a big difference, and I don't know if you saw it or not. I kept pretty much the same wire angle. These that I started out with, I was going away from me, but I was pretty straight up. This one I started out, I was straight up, I came toward me, so camera guy could kind of get in here. That first one really roped up. The second one laid down a little better. This third one, you know, again, we're saturating this plate with heat, and that helps blend stuff in. But what I'm really noticing here, and it's hard for you to see, I know, the toe of this weld is like fluttering. There's a reaction on this mill scale, and it's sitting here fluttering and everything. Plus, you know, a lot of these beads that I had on clean parent metal didn't have a whole lot of the glass, the deposit, the brown deposit on top. This one does. It's all kind of loaded up over here. You can see it when you're welding. It's like there's a little eye floating behind the wire. That's that brown silica deposit type stuff. In any event, you know, can you get by with it? Sure. Does it affect the weld? Obviously. You know, if we went in and really did the cut and etch, and I believe other people have, where they weld on clean and dirty steel, you'll see a little bit difference in what it does. But think about it, you know, if you're doing some critical work and you want it to look nice, clean the metal in the first place. You know, wire wheel, light grinder, flapper wheel, sander. So again, I want to encourage the gentleman to practice straight lines. You guys can do this. You probably do it way better than me. But again, you know, that travel speed and keeping straight lines, that's what it's all about, being able to see and be comfortable. Give a shout out to Arc One for the fine vision on this video. Southern Colorado Hats on Instagram. Look her up. She's got some cool stuff. I really appreciate you sending me this one here to try out. It's very comfortable. And Weld Porn, man, you got a hit on these gloves. These things are comfortable. Check these out. Appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching Weld.com. Please subscribe to the videos. Oops. So are you still mad at this hole?
Why?
Well, last time you were screaming or something, yelling. I think pretty sure you got your ass whipped too, but we'll do a rematch. You know I'm gonna birdie this hole. It's 400 yards. Oh, God, that looks good.